I painted this landscape today from my imagination without using any reference. However, over the many years I've been painting, creativity and coming up with ideas to paint has always been a struggle for me. Today I'm going to talk about how I get over this problem by following a simple process. Okay, I start by putting in a simple sky. It doesn't really matter what color it is. I try to avoid using blues early on because it's too obvious and all my paintings look the same. Before I started this painting, the only thing I really know about it is I want mountains and I want a river. That's basically it. I have no idea what it'll look like other than that. So my main concern are big shapes early on. That's really all I care about. If I get too into detail early on, I try to stop myself. Even this part is probably a bit too fiddly and I could have waited. But I try to make nice shapes. That's really what I'm after at the moment. So I'll just start to try and put the flat ground in. I usually just put a big green blob to get some grass in, and then I'll make some shapes to try and make the grass area look more interesting. We'll find out in this one I went too far on the grass and I should have just left it with 2 or 3 different colors, and I didn't like it, and you'll see that I undo this in a little bit. But one of the other main things is to understand where the river's going to go, so I get that in. The only thing to be aware of is to make sure that it gets smaller at the back and bigger up the front. I tried to do some more mountains there, but I didn't like them. This is me being too fiddly too early. So as much as I follow this process a lot, I still make lots of mistakes. I think that's kind of the main point of the way I do this is I have no idea what it's going to be. It's just about fixing lots of mistakes. It's about seeing the mistakes in the first place and being able to fix them and try and understand why it looks kind of wrong. You just get that with practice over time. So you'll see very often I'll change the hue and saturation and the lightness of each of these layers all the time. You'll see me going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. What I'm basically trying to do is get some sort of color harmony early on. If you get it early on, it's easier in the later stages to add more color. The color balance is way off right now. Sometimes it takes me a long time to find the color balance. Sometimes I get it straight away. I have no idea what color I want this painting. I don't plan my paintings. I just can't do it. It's not for me. I've had plenty of instruction to do thumbnails and all that kind of stuff. I just really don't enjoy it. So if you don't enjoy it, you don't need to do it. So you'll see here I've changed the grass because it was too complicated. So again, my process is to try and get the big shapes in early on in a fairly nice color scheme. Not perfect, but nice. And then that's basically what the painting is going to look like compositionally wise at this point. So if you zoom all the way out, this is basically what the painting is going to be like, other than the colors, which will change dramatically again. Several times probably, and that's okay. So once I got these basic shapes in, I start breaking up the shapes with highlights. I've had to choose where the light comes from, so I always keep it very simple, and it either comes from the left or right 9 times out of 10. Sometimes I do from behind, so it's backlit, but that's quite tricky with your imagination. So try and keep it simple and just move the sun to the right or the left. And usually you'll want it where you can put nice big highlights on the mountains and things. If I put it the other way around, you wouldn't have seen the highlights so much. So that's kind of dictated to me, depending on the shapes. So again, you can see me changing the colors again. And there I try to mess around with the sky to see if a better color suits. I think I stick with orange all the way through. But I try things. I mean, that is my process, is try things, keep on trying things, change things constantly until you get something. When I started painting like this years ago, I would have to change things a lot more than this. And lots of things didn't work. So you're obviously seeing something that kind of works, but I've got a bunch of these in Procreate half done, so it doesn't always work. And sometimes it's probably best to leave it, but you have to give it a good go, and don't abandon it too early, because it'll look bad for quite a long time. So you have to know when to persevere. And I'd say if you don't really know, just give it an hour or something like that. And if it still looks really bad, then you might want to, start again. Because not all compositions work. It doesn't matter how skilled you are. Some compositions just do not work, and they will never work. So if you manage to get one of those duds, then just finish. So once I have enough of the ground, so the mountains and the main shapes that are where you would walk, I start to go vertical, usually with trees. Not always, though. There can be cliffs or really big rocks and stuff, or big bushy type things. But I went for trees this time. One thing to be careful of, which I have made the mistake here too, is the scale's kind of wrong and the trees are too big. They could be that big. The scale is irrelevant until you have something that makes sense. But they looked off, so I thought sometimes when it looks off, I just move things and see if it looks better. And sometimes I can tell things look off, but I won't know why exactly. So I'll just try things until they maybe look a bit better. So changing the scale of things is always one. The shape, the color, how light it is, how dark it is. And Procreate's got all these cool tools you can move things around, so don't be afraid to move things around. So we're kind of on the detail stage now. One thing to be sure to do on the details is make sure things look like they're on the floor with simple shadows, but that's probably not a big deal in this style if you have them or not, to be honest, but they do add a little bit more. You can see I'm slowing down a little bit now because I'm trying to think of how to make things better, but generally this process is the same pretty much no matter how I paint the landscape. So now we're onto the river, and I always paint rivers roughly the same. You start dark, and then I'll put a light one in to put the highlights in, and then I'll do it again, and then do it again, and do it again until I kind of get to the lightness that I want. Again, I'm not too worried about the colors. Rivers don't have to be blue, but you just got to start with something, and then we can change the color afterwards. And I think on this one I end up changing it to sort of a greeny blue anyway. Again, at this stage I don't really know what I'm doing. There's no plan here. I'm just adding detail to make it look more interesting. You could probably stop here. You don't have to carry on going, to be honest. You can leave it as simple as you like. I try and do these fairly quickly, so this entire painting only took me 30 minutes anyway, so I try not to stop too early. And just I'm having fun anyway, so 30 minutes is nothing. So you might as well continue. But I do the same thing every time though. If I'm doing a mountains, rivers, it's the mountain, the grass, get the river in the right shape, get some rocks, get some trees, and then I start detailing each bit. And with this style, all I ever really do is the general shade of it and a highlight. So I don't really do much more than that. Sometimes I'll add a bit more form, but not often. Okay, so once I kind of get everything in there now, what I try to do as part of my process is make lighting interesting. Now, because I'm making this light up myself, light can be very difficult to imagine. So what I really do is I kind of fake it. So if you see that big black blob I just put on the screen on the wrong layer, I'll do it again, and then I'll drop the opacity, and it'll kind of just look like there's a bit of a shadow in the front going over the river, etc. So that's a nice easy way to make the light interesting. And I do the opposite here for the highlights. Again, it's kind of layers in the wrong place, but we'll drop the opacity a little bit and it'll just look like the sun's hitting the ground, or at worst it just looks like we've got different colored grass, etc. But it adds enough detail to make the painting more interesting. So I usually leave the clouds fairly to last, because sometimes I don't do them at all, and I kind of make the call if I want them, but most of the time I put them in now. For years I couldn't draw clouds and I used to avoid them, but now I'm not too bad at the comic-y ones. I try to keep them subtle because I'm still not confident they look any good, to be honest. And then most of the time I blend in the sky with the mountain with a simple pretend that there's fog coming down, and I do pretty much the same every time. I use the color of the sky wherever it hits the mountain first, and then bring it down so it looks like this like kind of clouds, but they're the color of the sky. It doesn't make any sense, but it's just stylized and makes it a bit more interesting. Sometimes I put the snow on top of the mountains. That looks quite cool, but I've done that a bunch of times now, so I didn't do it for this one. And again, going back to add some more detail, I alpha lock the trees, which means wherever I draw, I'll only go onto the tree underneath. I use a mix of alpha locking and clipping, so you can have a Google of what they are. They're fairly straightforward, but they make this process much easier. And I'm putting in detail down the front. All paintings generally have more detail at the front and less at the back. So I usually paint flowers in my paintings most of the time. So I thought I'd leave them out this time because the front is in shadow, but I could have put them in. I do like doing them. And this is the rare time I don't use the select tool, because I'm putting in some simple straight lines and things with the brush. So it'll be kind of fiddly trying to draw those in. But I'm coming to the end now. Now I kind of just do some effects and highlights and things that it just makes the painting look a bit more interesting. Like some sun rays. I don't usually do these. These are a new thing I've started doing. I usually try and do something new every painting just to keep it interesting and see if I learn anything. It doesn't always work, but and this looks kind of funny until I put the opacity down, and hopefully it just looks like some sun rays or something. And I'm fiddling about with the effects and things. And then I do my usual thing of making the borders more interesting. Basically what I do is make a big shape down the bottom, and this is filled in. You can't see it because the paint is in the way, but once you put clipping mask on all of these layers, you'll start to see that they conform to the bottom red blob of a layer. So every time I change the red blob layer, it will change how the border looks. Obviously this is highly stylized, and most people wouldn't do this. I'm just explaining how I do it. I just like the borders to be messy. I'm not sure why, just a personal preference. And 9 times out of 10 I make it black, and I probably will do in a second. I quite like the white too. It'd probably print nice. It'd probably look like a sticker or something. But on the screen the black looks better. Well, to me anyway. Maybe you prefer the white. So that's it. I'm coming to the end now. I'm probably just fiddling. I think I add some sheep here, but that's probably overdoing it. But I like to add some sort of animal if I can, to make the painting look a bit more lived in. I think I want to do more of that, to be honest. And I'm just flipping it just to make sure it looks okay. And that's basically it. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, and hopefully I've helped you learn something. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'd love to answer them. And please like and subscribe if you found this video useful, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one, and I'll try and explain some more.